It is 6:13 p.m. We have a quorum and this meeting has been duly posted. I want to say good evening and welcome to the monthly board meeting of the Dallas Independent School District Board of Trustees. If you will you please stand and join us for a moment of silence and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the salute to the Texas flag. The following trustees are present. District 1, we have Trustee Flores. District 2, Trustee Marshall. District 3, Trustee Mitchkay. District 4, Trustee Garcia. District 6, Trustee Foreman. District 7, Trustee Mackey. District 8, Trustee Solis. Our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Michael Hinojosa, joins us, and I'm Justin Henry, Board President. This meeting will be available simultaneously in Spanish on social media through Dallas ISD en Español, on Facebook, and through the district's website. Trustee Flores, do you mind?
Esta reunión se va a transmitir simultáneamente en español a través de las redes sociales por Dallas ISD en español, en Facebook y en la página web del distrito.
Thank you. Gracias. On March 16th, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request by Attorney General Ken Paxton to temporarily suspend a limited number of open meetings laws to the extent necessary to allow telephonic or video conference meetings in response to the coronavirus. In accordance with those suspended rules, we certified the following. A, notice of this meeting has been posted online for at least 72 hours. Although members of the board are not gathered in a central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by video conference or telephone call. C, we are meeting by the use of Zoom meeting software application, which allows two-way communication for members of the public. D, as we would at any in-person meeting, members of the public who have followed the instructions on the meeting notice for registering to speak during the public comment portion will be unmuted for 3 minutes to speak. If you would like to provide comment at a future meeting conducted by video conference or telephone call, please follow instructions on the meeting notice. E, all of the meeting procedures will adhere to board-adopted procedures to the extent practicable. F, an audio recording of this meeting is being made and will be made available to the public. G, we apologize in advance for any foreseeable difficulties and ask for your patience as we navigate unprecedented conditions. H, if you have any questions about these suspended laws, please call the Office of Attorney General at 888-672-6787 or by email at toma@oag.texas.gov. Trustees, we have some in-person recognitions tonight, and Ms. Proctor, would you please read the recognitions?
Thank you, President Henry. Good evening. Superintendent Hinojosa, Trustee Marshall, First Sergeant William Henderson, Officer Sergio Pacheco, and North Dallas High School Principal Catherine Esca. Please come forward. The board is honored to recognize First Sergeant William Henderson and Officer Sergio Pacheco for their heroism. These courageous men were called to the scene of an escalating dispute occurring in the parking lot at North Dallas High School. After quickly placing the campus on lockdown, their intervention and courageous actions saved lives of innocent citizens. Thank you, First Sergeant Henderson and Officer Pacheco, for your remarkable, heroic service. Superintendent Hinojosa, please remain standing. Trustee Solis, Eric Hill, and Bernard Elementary Principal Sonia Laska, please come forward. The board is honored to recognize Mr. Eric Hill, a phenomenal teacher at David G. Burnett Elementary School. Mr. Hill is the 2021 Texas Teacher of the Year and also the first Black male to be named Texas Teacher of the Year. During the September virtual Texas Association of School Administrators and Texas Association of School Boards convention, Mr. Hill was one of 6 finalists across the state and will proudly represent Texas in the National Teacher of the Year program.
Last year, we were so proud of Mr. Hale because he won the Council of Great City Schools Teacher of the Year for the National Teacher of the Year for that organization. And then this year, he got in the pipeline. And a couple of years ago, we had a couple of teachers that make it to Region 10 and they win. One of them went to state last year, or a couple of years ago. But I don't know if Dallas has ever had the State Teacher of the Year. And then, of course, now he's been nominated for National Teacher of the Year. And if you haven't seen, there's a great article in the Washington Post that featured Mr. Hale. And there's a video. If you can pull up the Washington Post and you watch that video, it tells you everything you need to know. And it's a great way to go out. So, Eric, we're so proud of you. And so here, I'll give you an opportunity to say a few words.
I would like to say I share this award with Dallas ISD. I started with this district 10 years ago, and we had one of the worst reputations in the country. I'm proud to say I've been here 10 years, and now we are leading from the front. We are the #1 urban school district in America. Everybody else is looking at us. Regardless of our faults, we're doing better than everybody else. I want to thank everybody in the school district, from the bus drivers to the cafeteria workers, to Dr. Hinojosa, to the chiefs. Stay encouraged. The great educators in this district, we respect you, and we see the vision. You've created a shared vision of excellence, and I, for one, appreciate you. Going forward, now we're trying to go from good to great and not be the #1 urban school district in America, but the #1 district. And I plan to be here when we achieve that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hill, for your award-winning service and commitment to the students at Burnett Elementary. This concludes our recognitions.
Thank you. Our agenda now calls for the public forum segment of our meeting. Ms. Grant, will you please call the speakers?
Our first speaker is Robert Ceccarelli. Robert Ceccarelli. Took over my screen. Mr. Ceccarelli, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hello?
You have 3
Can you hear
minutes
me?
to speak. Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me at all?
Yes. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. My name is Robert Ceccarelli, and I would like to talk about DISD and what the National Teacher of the Year said about DISD being the best school district in the country. Sir,
Okay.
the ACT scores, 18.4 to ACT scores. Houston's got a 22.0. DISD is only 5th best in the state of Texas with the college readiness. DISD is 5th behind Fort Worth, Austin, Houston, and San Antonio. Look it up with the Texas Tribune, and they'll give you the stats. Also, I'm very disgusted with what is going on with DISD changing schools from an F to a D by the state, it makes it seem like you're so proud of this school getting a D. That is ridiculous. You make it look like
Our next
hey,
our next speaker is Alicia McCowan.
Hello.
looks like you
I can't mute him.
want
That's him.
to
Hello.
have the parents of their students have the D. It's been so much written about.
Hello.
Ms. McCowan, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, great. Working for Dallas ISD in the age of a pandemic has been like being in a bad relationship. We've had to lie to cover up what's really going on. We're not sure about the future, and we're constantly wondering why we're here. In a previous board meeting, trustees and community members asked for guidance on the district response to the varying levels of the coronavirus pandemic. DISD responded by adding this guidance to the Education Evolution document. This document stated that if the health department declared that we were in a red zone, that the district would swiftly transition to virtual learning. This was a lie. In fact, many of us found out via news outlets and social media that now there was a number given to quantify when we would close. I don't believe that either. How can we, when Dallas has consistently moved the goalpost in the middle of the game? If I had known there would have been such a disregard to my health and that I would be away from my 8-month-old daughter for 2 weeks because I have become positive from a campus interaction that I could not have avoided by doing my job, I would have quit and found another way to make means happen. But now I am bound by my contract, so leaving would harm my future forever. I understand that TEA is not allowing 100% virtual, but DISD is known for innovative ways of getting around things, and missing the October 5th deadline is in part negligent. There are several things you can do, as I feel like we all need to be solutions oriented. The first thing is that you can hold parents to their choice of virtual or face-to-face so that schools can actually plan efficiently. We have students come on a whim because they have changed from the previous day, which is not only dangerous to other students, it's dangerous for the teachers as we are not prepared. One additional student can change the dynamics as well as the spacing needed in our classrooms. Also, you can cancel leveling this year as it combines classes that are already at capacity with the 6-foot requirement to keep the students safe. You can also provide us with quality PPE or a stipend so that we may get our own. What will you do when there's no one left to teach the students, no one left to support the students, and no one left to guide the district? Please show us, DISD, that teachers matter. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rosemary Kurtz.
Stole my speech a little bit. Just kidding. My name is Rosie. I'm a teacher in DISD at a high school. On August 20th, I was singing the DISD superintendent's praises on social media. Not only did he agree to keep school virtual for the first 4 weeks, he echoed teachers' own frustration with TEA's desire to, as he put it, put an expiration date on the pandemic. And he truly made fans out of many of us when he said that if TEA tried to withhold funding to force us into in-person school against county health recommendations, he was prepared to recommend to the school board that the district should sue the agency. Imagine my dismay when, after Dallas County once again shifted back to the red stay home, stay safe risk level last week, the superintendent and school board members insisted that their hands are tied regarding going full virtual because of TEA's insistence on an in-person option for a district to receive funding. I can't say I was incredibly surprised, though, because although the superintendent promised definitively at the beginning of the school year that he would absolutely follow recommendations from Dallas County health authorities, he never did. The county health authorities still recommended all virtual for high schools when we were at the orange risk level, but the superintendent ignored them. Superintendent of DISD lied to students, parents, and teachers. He promised to follow the direction of the county health authorities, but has rejected their advice. He said he was prepared to fight TEA if they forced us into unsafe conditions using the threat of funding, and now he says his hands are tied. How can I feel any confidence in any of the district's protocols when I can't trust our leadership in their most clear assertions? It's alarming how comfortable our leadership feels completely betraying the trust of its employees and the students and communities we serve and shrugging off our concerns. I feel deceived and terrified. I was also stupidly relieved when the COVID tracker from the district went live with the assurance that it would be updated daily. Now, over a week after staff at my school were notified of our 8th positive COVID case, the tracker still only shows us at 3 cases. Besides the absurdity of our being on campus at all, teachers are also still being evaluated under TEI. An inequitable and ineffective system anytime, TEI is especially egregious now. Under stressful circumstances, teachers are having our ability to effectively teach online evaluated by people who have never in their life before been forced to teach online based on a rubric addendum for online instruction, which was created by people who have never taught online. Teachers must be another year of TEI as we were last spring. There is no way to effectively implement it under the current conditions. Every day, I feel like COVID is this huge dark wave poised to crash over me. It feels more like a sense of when rather than if. It creeps closer to me. A fellow teacher that I've been in contact with goes home with a fever. A student is removed from my class because they have a family member with COVID at home. It's an insidious creature inching nearer and nearer until one of my students or I is the next to be swallowed up along with our loved ones. And my school district has proven definitively that they do not care. Not about me or my colleagues, not about the students they claim to serve, not about our communities. If they want us to think otherwise, they need to learn. Actions speak louder than words. The schools
Thank you.
need to
Your
go fully
time has
virtual.
expired.
Cheers.
Our next speaker is Jesus Serrato.
I'm ready.
You have 3 minutes to speak.
My name is Jesus Serrato, ID 5614. Sadly, a former Dallas ISD teacher. James B. Bonham alum, a Harry Stone alum, North Dallas and Skyline alum. I worked for 14 years in the district, and I was pretty much given the option to stay home and care for family or I guess resign. So unfortunately, I chose to resign. I applied for AWAs and I was denied. I applied for family leaves and was denied. And honestly, it breaks my heart that I have to walk away like this. But I think the district, the parents, and the students deserve better from every single board member, from the superintendent, and from everybody making these decisions at the moment. You can have the rest of my time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Raina Honey.
Raina Honey, after me.
Good evening, President Henry, trustees, and Dr. Hinojosa. Rena Honey, President of Alliance AFT. I want to acknowledge the work that everyone in the district is doing. These unprecedented times call for extraordinary efforts while we're seeing every day. But there are concerns that need to be brought to your attention that are creating the most toxic environment in our schools that I've witnessed in my 35 plus years with this district. At the beginning of this school year, the administration shared a communication about us all having mercy and grace. Obviously, that was mere rhetoric because it certainly isn't the practice that employees are experiencing today. Why is it that principals are being told not to share with their staff the positive COVID test results in the buildings, not giving names, of course, but confirming that the campus has a case or cases? The perception of lies and deception is greater than it's ever been. And why is it that substitutes aren't being called in? Many of the classrooms are overcrowded as it is, but classes are split up and sent to another teacher's room just exacerbates this problem. There's absolutely no social distancing when this happens because there's not enough room. And why aren't campus administrators and central staff members that have teaching certificates going into the classes and assisting with the substitute shortage? We now know there's a certain number of students that have to be present to even qualify for campus subs. Where's the mercy and grace? Districts proclaim that students are the #1 priority, but we've all learned that test scores are the priority. There's so many district required tests that our teachers don't have time to provide necessary instruction. Yet they're being required to go through all the motions like they really are getting to teach. They're spending hours on ends doing lesson plans for 2 separate formats. Yet the said concern on student learning loss doesn't even matter because of all the tests. And what about the problem with the common assessments that have yet to be addressed? Why also is there no online version of the common assessments at 2 of our campuses, and all of those kids are going to be made to go into the buildings for yet another test? Grace and mercy? Lastly, the unrealistic expectations being placed on teachers and campus employees is devastating for their morale and health. The number of additional trainings, meetings, loss of planning times, reporting at 7 a.m., not leaving till 5:30 or later for added duties and meetings, answering parent and student phone calls and emails when they get home, as well as continued paperwork. Our teachers and support staff love their students and have sacrificed much for them, but very soon many will make a choice to take care of themselves and their families and leave our schools, which will be a tragedy. Please begin showing the grace and mercy proclaimed at the beginning
Thank
of
you.
the
Your
school
time has
year.
expired.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Linda Barrett. Linda Barrett.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Linda Barrett, and I'm a cover driver, and I am speaking in behalf of the drivers and monitors of DISD. Ladies and gentlemen, I come with much concern in our well-being and safety of our livelihood for our drivers and monitors. The coronavirus shares no partiality, and you shouldn't either. You shouldn't show partiality either. We have had cases of COVID-19 all over our transportation department, but some feel like as if the drivers and monitors that have been exposed, they don't qualify for quarantine, as if we don't matter. The Bible speaks of showing partiality. We all work for DISD, and we all give our very best, and we all are connected to each department. We have lost quite a few of our drivers and monitors, but they left because they felt that they were let down and unappreciated. Now, this is not political. This is having compassion and respect for everyone. The coronavirus numbers are very high and the risk is very high. We ask that you go virtually and remember to treat the few remaining drivers and monitors with compassion and dignity, for we are the unsung heroes of DISD. We also ask that you give us an option to go yearly pay that we will never have to experience what we experienced this summer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cindy Johnson.
Hello, good evening. I just want to take a few minutes of your time to listen to my concerns and well-being for our students and teachers. Currently, I've been working for Victor H. Hexter Elementary for the past 6 years, and this school is near and dear to our hearts as a family. I had 2 children that go to Hexter, well, one previously and another student at Hill. And my observations for my daughter, personally speaking as a parent, have made me physically ill. Now, this has nothing to do against administration and setting standards and so forth. They've been excellent in doing that. But the situation lies beneath with not having enough staff on campus to fulfill these classrooms. And my daughter had received, her MAP score was a 91 percentile in math. And when she took her common assessment, she sped through it through School City in 7 minutes because there was just a warm body there in the room, and she got a 44. And it made me really nervous because as a 5th grade STAR teacher, I'm constantly observing data for children, and I think guiltily enough, why am I not helping my child even more than I can and doing more for my students? Now, fast forwarding, I also think that having teachers do both Zooming, remote learning, and having us do double duty has extenuated our health some. And students in the classroom or remote, I have observed that they feel they're not really being part of the classroom now ever since we've separated 4 weeks past. So I'm seeing a lot of psychological concerns for my students as well, and hope we can make things better for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Patricia Doyle.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, Dr. Hinojosa and School Board Trustees, thank you for your time this evening. I am Dr. Patricia Doyle, a physical therapist with the Special Education Department and an executive board member of Alliance AFT. I spoke to you in July and presented data and scientific information to you, warning of the consequences of reopening schools before meeting the CDC guideline of a positivity rate below 5% for 14 days. I asked you to set politics aside and consider the science. And unfortunately, schools were reopened and science proved to be correct. In the past 2 weeks, according to the AAP, cases of childhood COVID have increased by 13% nationwide. And this is likely an underestimated number. According to UT Southwestern, COVID cases are rising in Dallas County in all age brackets. The hospitalization rate has increased by 48% in the past 2 weeks, and we are predicted to continue to rise. Equally concerning are the estimates that the current rate of infection, that COVID should reach 1,200 per day as of November 3rd. And while it's true that fewer people are dying, many continue to die needlessly. And what is of greater concern to me personally is the still unknown long-term effects and its potential to permanently debilitate and disable a person, not to mention the financial burdens imposed by this virus. Looking back at the data, we know that if we as a country had done an average job of dealing with COVID-19, following the science, listening to the experts, we could have saved 145,000 people. There are now 222,000 people dead and countless others living with chronic illness as a result of this virus. This didn't have to happen. And we as a district should not be sending students and teachers back to the classroom when we once again are in the red zone with rising cases and community spread. The COVID-19 dashboard grows larger every day, and that doesn't even reflect the real numbers, but only those that self-report. The CDC now acknowledges that the virus is aerosolized at greater than 6 feet, not just droplet, and that cumulative exposure, not just one exposure of 15 minutes, requires contact tracing. Poor ventilation, lack of windows, all contribute to increased viral load and exposure, and flu season is beginning. One teacher is dead. That's too many. I urge you to listen to the science and protect the students and teachers of this district and stop ignoring the pleas of your teachers and the good people of this district. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Maritza Martinez.
Good afternoon. My name is Maritza Martinez. I am a 5th year teacher with DISD. How many of us will have to die for you to listen to us? 0 deaths is the only acceptable number, but we are past that. A life which ended too soon, which is still refused to acknowledge. In every board meeting that I have attended since July, the overwhelming consensus from teachers is that remote instruction should be the only mode of instruction until it is safe. Dallas County is in the red level, which is stay home, stay safe. It is not safe to continue in-person instruction. I'd like to make you aware of some of the issues your employees are reporting to Alliance's COVID-19 tracker. At Eladio Martinez Elementary, a parent shared, I have been informed that 5 classrooms are quarantined at this particular school. However, the school building is still open with other students in the building. Hotchkiss has students with COVID but actually closed. I am not sure why one school closed but one is left open with the same concerns. At McShawn Elementary, a coworker shared that the classroom teacher tested positive. There is no quarantine of students, and TA who had close contact, they are still at school. At Pigston, a teacher shared that I just had to chase down a student who was wearing their mask under their chin, only to find them going into a classroom where the teacher wasn't even wearing a mask. What is that? They were allowing the students to sit around with masks under their noses / off their faces as well. I've also seen other teachers walking the halls with masks under their noses. We are not safe here if we cannot rely on fellow teachers. At Ignite Middle School, a teacher shared that teachers are not wearing their mask around students. The halls are packed and not socially distanced. Teachers' rooms are full and desks are not 6 feet apart. Several students have their mask around their chin and are not following safety guidelines, and staff and admin are doing nothing to fix it. Hotchkiss, a community member shared that was told the school has several cases, think the school has closed or been closed for a few days due to cases, not much communicated to Dallas ISD staff and community from the district level. At Lipscomb Elementary, from a principal or supervisor, it's difficult with the kids, it's too much for them to do, everyone is stressed, every day you see at least one teacher cry. From Sam Houston Personalized Learning Academy, I have children who refuse to wear a mask, will intentionally and purposely take off the mask and walk up to friends to give them germs. Adam has been called for both occasions and was told it was okay, that sometimes they just need a break from the mask, and that it was my fault. Absolutely no support whatsoever, and no respect for my health or the health of the other kids in my class. Believe me, I could go on. It is incredibly disheartening that my employer in my chosen profession, which I have poured so much into, has such little disregard for my health and safety. We get the message loud and clear. To you, we are expendable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Shawana Washington. Shawana Washington. Our next speaker is Katrina Rasmussen.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Dr. Hinojosa and Board of Trustees. My name is Katrina Rasmussen. I am proud to be a high school teacher in Dallas ISD. I'm speaking today out of concern for the health and safety of our students, faculty, and campus staff in our district. Last week, Judge Jenkins and Dr. Huang moved our Dallas County COVID risk level from orange back to red. Today on the Hub, Dallas ISD explained their decision not to return to virtual learning by saying that the TEA has not given us the option to do so. Unfortunately, this message does not address the health and well-being of our students and staff. Instead, it passes responsibility to the state by effectively saying that our hands are tied. Our students need our local leadership. TEA has made it clear in their ever-changing policies that they are washing their hands of any responsibility for protecting Texas students. We have over 400 cases in the district. We have 10 positive cases on my campus. To wait until hospitalizations and deaths increase as a result of reopening is unconscionable. Those on the ground know that our current course of action is unsustainable. We see lack of social distancing in our schools. We see staff members, construction workers, and faculty failing to mask up, even when there are students present. I even had to work in the same classroom as a teacher who refused to keep a mask on while we had 8 students in the room with us. My campus leadership has been very clear on the requirements to wear masks, and yet I still see faculty, staff, and students without masks on inside the building. Tonight, I am asking for bold leadership from our Board of Trustees. We do not have the community buy-in needed to hold face-to-face classes safely. Moreover, our community spread of COVID-19 is too high to have people sitting in school buses or in classrooms. Even if we can isolate the spread within a school, we cannot control how responsible people are outside the building. While our county is in the red, the safest course of action is to return to virtual learning. And if that means we need to put pressure on TEA, I am asking that you, our trustees, courageously do so. The safety of our face-to-face framework relies upon protocols being followed. I am speaking tonight to tell you that protocols are not being followed. I report noncompliance, and yet noncompliance continues, not due to lack of leadership, as my principal has been meticulous in her dedication to safety. The lack of compliance is rooted in the cloudy rhetoric surrounding this dangerous virus. Those of us who follow the science bear a double burden, navigating this pandemic alongside people who truly believe that this is nothing more than the flu. How am I supposed to focus on meeting the emotional and instructional needs of my students when I am constantly battling just to keep us all safe? Respectfully, I am at my breaking point. What is the district's plan? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is George Rangel.
Good evening, President Henry, trustees, Superintendent Hinojosa. George Rangel, 334 Center Street, Dallas, Texas, Executive Vice President of Alliance AFT. I'm speaking to you regarding the COVID cases, issues that we have. As the health experts predicted, shortly after reopening schools, we are back at the red risk level in Dallas. After talking to hundreds of educators here in the schools, it is clear this problem will only worsen in the days and weeks to come. Many guidelines do not go far enough to keep our students and educators safe, such as advising social distancing on buses when possible. Experts say social distancing should not be required, not when possible. The district has guidelines in place that look good on paper, but the implementation fails miserably. For example, Douglas Elementary plexiglass on tables is too small and does nothing to protect the students. Cedar Crest Elementary is overcrowded, classrooms constant moving from one room to another. Molina, plexiglass dividers not being cleaned, students not wearing masks, overcrowding hallways and stairways. Highland Meadow cafeteria, dangerous protocols not being followed. Boteo Elementary, no temperature checks for staff. W.T. White, no masks being worn. Coward Elementary received only one box of N95 masks. Anson Jones, overcrowding in classroom. Bus drivers told to pack the kids in the bus. J.J. Road teacher told to quarantine, but no one notified the parents. Kids were shuffled around. Social distancing and mask wearing is not taking place in many campuses and more prevalent in high schools. Please don't take our word for this, board members. Make an unannounced visit to the campus you represent and observe for yourself. Examples of what's taken place with faculty and staff. Urban Park faculty member's child has COVID. Principal told faculty member, come on in, I'll report it. Psychological service telling staff, don't say anything about COVID. Executive director of mental health services instructing staff not to report COVID cases. The district spent $5 million on us, so we better be at the schools at all times. Really? Skyline quarantine staff was told to report to work or they would be abandoning their jobs and be fired. While all of this causes undue stress on our students and educators, what's more stressful is the lack of transparency. What people really want to know is, what is the plan? If everyone is to risk their lives every day, the least you can do is let them know what the plan is, or do we even have one? We all know that there are restrictions on closing schools imposed by the state, but we elected you to be our leaders and push back against those in Austin who don't have our best interests at heart. One last word. The current workload is unsustainable and already causing fatigue and burnout. Please listen to your employees and the folks that you ran to represent. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Yolanda LaFall.
Yes, my name is Yolanda LaFall, and I'm speaking today on the behalf of returning to virtual learning. Safety is our priority. Safety for our students, safety for us, safety for our families. Just like the officers you minutes ago praised for saving lives at the North Dallas High School, please save our lives. You, the board, one of the largest, if not the largest school district, are safe. You still have the opportunity to remain safe. Why not us? We deserve to have these same accommodations that each one of you have been granted. We're talking about a pandemic, a deadly virus. We have the opportunity to remain safe, to live and not die. If you look into your own lives and see how difficult it is to try and stay safe at all times, then consider us. You call your heroes for education. Prayers definitely go out to the teacher who lost his life, and his family behind the deadly virus. Congratulations to those ones you have already recognized and they've received their accolades. Give us the chance to even receive ours. May God continue to bless each and every one of you. And as one of the speakers were saying, most of my people at the campus that I'm at don't wear a mask, even the principal. Even today, she called over the radio and said, hey, bring me my mask off my desk. Now, how safe is that? The kids seeing her not wearing her mask, the leader of the school, what are they to do? Follow suit, I guess. So please, once again, consider us, the education heroes, I call us. Keep us safe, just like you are safe. Let's return to virtual learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Christine Elliott.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good evening. My name is Christine Elliott, and I teach high school English in Dallas ISD. I want to address my concerns around schools remaining open as Dallas's COVID threat level returns to red. After less than 3 weeks of in-person learning, the district has reported a gross underestimation of over 300 cases among students and staff. This is unsurprising as the district's current safety measures, which are already insufficient, are not being implemented with fidelity in schools. At my own campus, students are failing to socially distance in classrooms and hallways. Students and staff members are not wearing masks consistently and correctly. This is not a matter of being stricter about enforcing expectations. The expectations themselves are unrealistic. With a virus that has been so politicized, many adults are not even willing to model proper safety behavior. Furthermore, these safety procedures are not developmentally appropriate for children, even at the high school level. As a result of these complications, teaching in person has been far less effective than teaching online. Teachers who are enforcing safety expectations spend more time reminding students to wear their masks than guiding them through their classwork. Furthermore, teachers are being asked to do 2 jobs, teach online and in person, at the same time. It is unreasonable to expect that either group is getting quality instruction when we're being forced to split our attention. If there were any doubts that we should return to online instruction before, Dallas's return to a COVID threat level of red ought to dispel them. At a red threat level, activities such as going to dentist appointments, getting haircuts, or even non-essential grocery trips are discouraged. It is reckless and inconsiderate to continue in-person education. I know I'm not alone when I say that I feel the district is not currently considering my well-being, nor the well-being of my students and their families. If we continue in-person learning, at best, students and teachers will have an extremely stressful and unsatisfactory school year. At worst, people will die. Returning to complete online instruction is the only safe and responsible decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mamie Huff. Mamie Huff.
Yes, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mamie Huff, and this is my 24th year in the Dallas Independent School District. I'm here because I believe that teachers should have the option to work from home the way you all do, the board, I mean. I'm starting to fear that you're just allowing us to speak just to give us a false sense of being heard and having some say in what will happen to us. And then you'll still make whatever decision you want. There's nothing that I can say that you haven't already heard. Nothing that I can say that you don't already know. I know you hear us. You don't need me to remind you that Dallas County's COVID-19 risk level is red, meaning stay home, stay safe. You don't need me to remind you that although students may not be at high risk for severe reactions to COVID-19, many of those of us who care for them are. We are a data-driven district. Where is the data? Where is the data that proves that we are not risking our health and safety or even our lives by coming to work every day, surrounding ourselves with small children who are finding it very difficult to cover their mouths and noses with a mask and shield for 7 hours a day. Where is the data that supports your decision? And differentiation. For years, I've tailored my instruction to fit individual students because the data has shown that to be effective. Well, there's no differentiation here. All teachers, whether we have underlying medical conditions or not, must teach all students, whether they are at home or in our classroom, at the same time. High risk, low risk, no risk, mask or not, it doesn't matter. There's no differentiation at all. This is heartbreaking because I love my students, I love my school, I love my job. But what I don't love is that I have no true control over my own health and safety. Those of you who have the final say are ultimately making a decision for those of us who have given so much to this district. Please don't let us down. Is it that you don't hear us or you don't care? It's time to stand up for us. Prove that we matter. Return to virtual instruction now. What are we waiting on? What are we waiting on? Please don't say that we're waiting on more deaths, more illnesses. We don't know enough about this virus still now, but yet we're risking our lives every day for the children that we care about. But who's here to care about us? Return to virtual instruction now. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Nedra Ballard. Nedra Ballard.
Can you hear me?
Yes. You have 3 minutes to speak. Our next speaker is Mariella Ingram.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Marcella Ingram, and I'm a teacher and resident in District 7, as well as a parent of 2 children in District 7 and a parent of a child in District 2. I'm here today to express my concerns about the district's response to what is going on. In my school, I have seen children not keep masks on. I have seen children come into the building without masks. Safety protocols that were put in place at the beginning of the year have not seemed to work, and quite frankly, make me scared and terrified to send my own children to school. As of right now, my 2 children in District 7 are not in school, and neither is my child in District 2 because of these reasons. I am asking the district to consider moving to virtual as the city has moved us back into the red. As a teacher, I am stressed, anxious, and quite frankly, dread going to work each day. The stress of juggling between my online and virtual students gives me panic attacks that I can't even really seem to come back from. It seems as if administration does not care about its teachers and only wants to hear about the data. To have to sit here and give your all to your students only to be met with accountability for data is the worst feeling in the world. We are asking our administration to give us teachers grace while we're all going through this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alicia Benilla. Alicia Benilla.
Hi, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I'm a student at Skyline High School, and based on our students' perspectives, the district is really failing us at keeping the students safe. The students are more concerned into turning in their work on time rather than actually learning the material. Teachers as well, I'm very aware that they are also stressed in trying to teach us in both virtual and in person. The students are forced to make the choice whether to risk their health or to risk their learning. This is a major issue. This is a major issue between the teachers and the students themselves, both as we're risking our health. So we ask, is the district really helping us or are they just ignoring us? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Elizabeth Ferris.
Hello.
You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Ferris. I'm a Dallas ISD teacher and an AFT member. Dr. Hinojosa and Board of Trustee members, as reported by Education Week Industry Magazine, Shannon Holston, the Director for Teacher Policy at National Council on Teacher Quality, said, "It seems a number of states understand that this is not a normal year and have tried to adjust requirements for evaluations." Elizabeth Eusis, the Associate Director of Professional Development and Instructional Issues at the New Jersey Education Association, said she's concerned about the validity of using student growth measures to determine a teacher's effectiveness, given the wide variability of students' learning conditions at home as well as district resources. State education leaders should think about leveraging information from accountability systems, mainly to put in place support initiatives for school improvement, according to the leaders attending a webinar hosted by the Council of Chief State School Officers, rather than using it to make claims about school performance. In the meantime, reverting systems to the status quo is a bridge too far for this year, said Chris Domleski, Associate Director for the Center of Assessment. Our work is very different now. We are in recovery. Dr. Hinojosa, in the last board briefing, you acknowledged the significant achievement gaps reflected in our current assessment data. We need to ensure that all of the actions of our district are focused on recovery, not business as usual. Given this, the implementation of the evaluation system for teachers this year must be modified. Many components of the evaluation rubric are null and void in this new pedagogy of social distancing and virtual learning. Specifically, assessment should be removed from the evaluation rubric. We need assessments from Common, MAPS, and STAR to measure student performance, but to make any attempt to tie student assessment performance to teacher effectiveness is, in short, unethical. Currently, we are teaching in a system of controlled chaos. No one has ever had to teach in these circumstances. No one in our district offices have ever experienced anything as we now have in our schools. No one is truly qualified to evaluate teachers in this setting, and our evaluation rubric is inadequate to meet our new reality. We can adapt many things within the rubric throughout the year to support and foster our best practices, but student assessment has no place in teacher evaluations. There is a reason every major educational institution and organization is researching and forming task forces to address the impact of the COVID-19 school closures. It has had a devastating effect on our students and their teachers. Our teachers are overwhelmed in the face of new realities of hybrid, socially distanced, virtual, and mass teaching and learning, many with classrooms that make a mockery of the 60% rule and the district's supposed safety protocols. Teachers are stymied in the face of the depth of loss of skill they are measuring as students return to school. We need confidence in our district that systems are in place for support, not the perceived punitive and oblivious applications of systems trying to enact the status quo. We need leadership. Teachers need our district to demonstrate clearly that they are cognizant of the trials we're facing on the campuses and that the goal is to support our teachers and students in the recovery necessary to overcome the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Heike Smith.
Hi, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, all. I am speaking tonight to plead with the board to listen to reason. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I am speaking tonight to plead with the board to listen to reason and send us all virtual to stop the spread of COVID in Dallas ISD. On my campus, there are 4 confirmed staff and 4 confirmed students with COVID, and we have not closed at all for any extra cleaning like we were told we would if that were to happen. I feel my admin is doing all they can, but I also feel like their hands are being tied much like ours. Where is the transparency from the district level? Why are we still open when the county is back to red like it was in April or May? I teach all the students in my building, And I have not been told to quarantine, even though 4 of my students have contracted COVID that we know of. Where is the safety net for my face-to-face students so that I can continue to do my best job teaching them and every other student? My inbox fills daily with more and more students being sent home for isolation and no email telling me that I was in close contact. If I added up all the times I had to tell a student to cover their nose or put their mask back on, I just might fit that criteria, but I would never know. I will document every single time I say to any student to cover their nose because that is a potential threat to my safety and other students' safety. The CDC recently changed their definition of close contact to be cumulative times of 15 minutes instead of all at once. My colleagues, students, and I could probably rack up many minutes of exposure just from telling students to fix their masks because who knows how long they had their mask off their nose before we noticed and had to tell them to fix it. We're going to listen to the parents. We're going to listen to the teachers. Dr. Hinojosa said, answering questions in English and Spanish, and we're going to especially listen to the science, the Wall Street Journal. Dr. Hinojosa said on August 20th, live on Facebook, the pandemic doesn't have an expiration date. He asked Maraf, what if we get to that 8 weeks and my county says don't have instruction and I say we aren't having instruction? What money do we qualify? TEA said you would qualify for no state or local money. I said if it gets to that point, I will recommend to my school board to jump in on the lawsuit for funding. Board members, are your real jobs virtual or in person? Asking for a friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Charles Williams. Charles Williams.
Hello.
You have 3 minutes to speak.
All right. Hello, good evening to the DISD board, trustee members, Dr. Hinojosa, George Foreman, Max Johnson, to all those who serve on the board. Excuse me. As an allowance AFT union member, and as a DISD driver, as a pastor, and as a husband, as a father, my concern for the district and for the schools, classrooms, teachers, drivers, and monitors for the whole entire school district. Where is our compassion that we should have in making the decisions with the social distance and the results and that we're getting from the CDC and the health department? I know that the board is making the decisions, but where is our compassion to see that kids is getting contracted with coronavirus? Right now, I'm standing in the gap for my wife of 22 years marriage. She is fighting for her life at Methodist Hospital. And it's no good feeling when you see a loved one that's fighting for their life. That's a family member. And I've had to quarantine myself for 2 weeks. I haven't been at work for 2 weeks. And it's not a good feeling knowing that your husband or your wife is fighting for their life. I can't go see her. I can't talk to her. All I can do is just go by what the doctors and the nurses are telling me. That's a very hurtful feeling. I've heard teachers and students and other people get up and say the concerns of safety with the kids being virtual. Let us look at this thing again and continue the virtual. I mean, I know our kids need education, and I agree with that. But we have to still look at the safety concerns of our lots, North Dallas, Cleveland, Pat Rainey, Longview, the drivers, the monitors, the teachers, the students. We have to look at all of this and realize that our health is more important than us making money. Yes, I know we would love to be at work, but we still have to look out for our safety health issue. And we just asked in the board to consider, to look at the decision making that you're all doing. And it's like, 15 or 20 of y'all making the decisions for 40,000 employees. Have some compassion and look at this different. See how it would feel if one of your family members was in the hospital. You can't go see them.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Our next speaker is Ashley Fiamingo.
Hello?
You have 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening, Superintendent Hinojosa and board members. My name is Dr. Fiamingo. I am a science teacher at Franklin D. Roosevelt High School and a member of Alliance AFT. This is National School Safety Week. Historically, this week has been used to draw attention to school violence, but during a pandemic, everything, including this observance, looks different. Safety this week must focus on the health concern that many seem to hope will disappear if they simply ignore it for long enough. Our school's football team has already had at least one student athlete test positive and the entire team quarantined for the requisite 2-week period. And now they are back roaming the halls of our school unmasked, with several members unwilling to comply with directives to cover their nose and mouth. Repeatedly, these young men tell me that I'm the only adult on campus who reminds them to cover their faces. But it's not just the students. There are employees on my campus who are also frequently either fully unmasked or have their noses sticking out while around others and in common spaces throughout the building. These adults should be models for the students, not additional health hazards. I've seen students, parents, and other visitors come on campus without undergoing any form of screening at the door. Promised protective equipment has still not been deployed, although I have been told it is present on campus. I am disappointed in campus leadership for the day-to-day operations and in district leadership for not following through on commitments made before the start of the school year to follow the guidance of the county health authorities. As Dallas County returned last week to the red risk level, which recommends that we stay home, stay safe, we should not have any in-person learning if we are following the science. Opening middle and high schools while we were under the orange risk level was not within county health guidance to begin with. During the August 13th board briefing, Superintendent Hinojosa told trustees and the public that Dallas ISD would follow the guidance of the Dallas County Health and Human Services regarding reopening. Why will you not consider following this guidance anymore? The pandemic is not over. And as you yourself, Superintendent Hinojosa, have said, it has no expiration date. Our adherence to the science must also have no expiration. Continuing to provide high quality instruction within these unsafe operating conditions is challenging, but my colleagues and I are showing up every single day, committed to doing what is best for our scholars. However, there is no research-based guide to teaching simultaneously remotely and in person during a pandemic, while also preparing lesson materials that will be accessible asynchronously. So every day we do our best. We learn from our experiences, we solicit feedback from students and colleagues, and we innovate for the next lesson. Teachers have no models to follow, no experienced mentors to turn to for advice. Administrators have never done what we are tasked with doing this year, and yet they will be evaluating teachers as if it were a normal year. Students are facing high stakes testing as if this were a normal year. This is absurd. We need to pause TEI, which is unfair and biased in a normal year, and commit to holding teachers harmless again this year, as was done for the last school year, which was far more normal than this year will be. This year is terrifying, and to proceed with business as usual is simply unconscionable. We must do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mark Harrington.
Okay. I read an article last week. Oh, I should say good evening. I read an article last week. The 5 words every successful person knows. I apologize. I was wrong. In this time of crisis, we should remember those words. These past few years, one phrase has been popular in education circles. The best schools are data-driven schools. If the best schools are data-driven schools, our students would not be on campus. The only conclusion is that when data mattered, most data didn't matter. I assume we will never again hear that data-driven schools are the most successful schools. As we sit here tonight, there are families who have lost loved ones, teachers who would still be alive if our leadership had stood up to the governors, education commissioners, and the President of the United States and said, we will not do what is good for your political careers, we will do what is good for students and teachers. When Thanksgiving rolls around this year, I doubt that the loss those families feel will lessen if they place the expressions of condolences that they have received on the empty chairs where their loved ones would have sat. Think about that. This is death. These people won't be back after break or vacation. They will never be back, and that was preventable. As we sit here tonight, there are women and men whose careers have been destroyed because they have been unable to return to the schools they love and the profession to which they have dedicated their lives because their health can't allow it, and their districts refuse to recognize this and support them. Many of those teachers are here in Dallas. I'm one of them, and after 22 years of dedicated service, I'm about to be tossed aside with a callousness that has bewildered me. Virtual learning can be effective, and I refer you to two segments KRA did after Bill Ziebel sat in on my Zoom classes last spring. Is it as good as in-person learning? Of course not. But people don't die and careers aren't destroyed. Will our students recover from this difficult time? Of course they will. Did the students who lost learning time during World War I or World War II recover? Of course. Kids are resilient. It is not too late for us to correct the situation, and before another person dies, the Dallas Independent School District should do what Boston did yesterday and return to 100% virtual learning. We must remember those 5 words. I was wrong, I apologize. Words that show strength and not weakness. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Janice Wilson.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Giving honorable respect to Dr. Hinojosa and all board members. I am Janice Wilson speaking tonight because it is imperative to rethink Dallas high-stakes testing and teacher evaluation systems. With online classes, displaced families, and students in distress expecting comparable test outcomes and tying teachers' pay and promotions to that is deeply unfair. Reduce the burden of testing such as IAs, CAs, ACPs, and MAP testing. High-stakes testing in the best of times is not advised nor effective, but believing that a teacher can expect the same testing results when children are in distress during unprecedented times, whether in person or virtual, is pie in the sky, right? Suspend TEI, or better yet, move to an evaluation system that untethers pay for scores on tests. Many other states and school districts have already abandoned merit pay and high-stakes testing because of the lack of significant evidence proving it is tied to educational outcomes. DISD constantly makes the case that it is the district of the future, but lags woefully behind other districts that have looked at the data, which DISD loves, and found alternatives. The time to say bye-bye TEI is now. Give teachers and students the opportunity to teach and learn holistically, rather than browbeating and micromanaging with tests under already dire circumstances. Suspending TEI would also allow the district to move to a virtual model more easily. Without the burden of constant tests, teachers will be more able to help kids with their social and emotional learning, which is vitally important. DISD must follow the data that has been supplied through science, which shows that we are in the red. Students and teachers are under unwanted stress, both personally and at school. The loss of a life of even a single teacher, staff, student, or family member is on the shoulders of Superintendent Hinojosa and the board. Are you prepared to have that on your conscience? Let your voice be your bond. Do what is right to honor your word. Keep us safe. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Zoe Holden.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. I'm Zoe Holden. I'm with Alliance AFT, but I will be speaking on behalf of a transportation worker today. On behalf of the Transportation Department, I would like to express concern shutting down the schools and department down at the CDC COVID-19 level is at code red. Transportation and a few other departments may be counted last in this district, but our health matters. We are the ones out in the field, getting the job done, coming in contact with staff members and students who have COVID-19 and may not have known that they have come in contact with someone who is positive, because in order to secure funding and keep the district going, many are being silenced, which is detrimental to many other employees. We have family, especially young kids who maybe won't be able to fight back against the virus. If we come in contact with this at our workplace, I understand we can't get rid of the virus, but we can control it to a certain extent. One example to help control or minimize the spread is the possibility of hiring a COVID-19 cleaning crew. When COVID-19 first hit, we were the first ones to be cut without summer pay, so that impacted our family. Many transportation workers were driven homeless because of lack of pay. Yes, we are employees who work 185 days out of 365 a year, but I believe in the midst of a pandemic, our district should care enough to have us covered due to that we are the ones out in the fields and we bring so much value to the district. So hopefully this concern can be implemented with year-round pay for the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jennifer Lees. Jennifer Lees.
Can you hear me?
Yes. You have 3 minutes to speak.
As a teacher of 12 years, mostly in DISD and virtual, but before the pandemic, I know Dallas ISD has faced the challenges of 2020 head on. Many decisions made so far have been intelligent, measured, and informed by an impressive community of experts and allies. Yet I'm left doubting campus-level safety as we are facing more difficult choices ahead with fewer options and even less authority. Experts have moved the COVID threat level to high risk and our test positivity rate is increasing daily. So yes, I am also urging you to consider a return to virtual learning. I come to you under no illusion about the struggles our students face, from food insecurity to mental health challenges to a staggering increase in domestic violence. So of course, I'm very concerned. We've been pulling off the impossible, teaching virtual and in-person classes at the exact same time, finding the energy and patience to support our most vulnerable students in crisis. But this is not sustainable. We're exhausted, scared, and stressed. As someone at a higher risk for complications with COVID, having been denied my request for an AWA, my life may depend on your decisions. Projections by UT Southwestern estimate that we will have 1,250 new cases every day by October 27th. I am concerned this new surge will overwhelm our most valuable human resources in schools, crippling an already cracking system. Exactly how many teachers can we afford to lose, either from illness or burnout, before we can no longer provide critical community services? I wish it was an easy decision to just, and I quote, pack it up and go home. But as our district leader said, it's not that simple. I promised my 6-year-old that I would not send him to school if it was not safe, that I would not put myself in danger, that he could feel confident in the world because I would do what's right, even when it's hard. This isn't the time to give in to what is easy, which would be to wait until the numbers clearly evidence the danger. By waiting, you may be asking my son and thousands of children and loved ones in our community to sacrifice even more than they already have. I know we share a passion for this district, and we understand the value it brings to our community. So I beg you, don't wait. Go to the TEA and Mike Morath, go to Governor Abbott, but go now while you still have the chance to protect us. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Georgette Kendall.
Good evening. My name is Georgette Kendall, and I'm a 3rd grade teacher. I've been with DISD for 20 years, and this is the first time I've addressed the board. I am proud to work in this district and serve my community. I truly appreciate all the hard work and the best intent of the district leadership. My purpose tonight is to make leadership aware of some of the conditions on campuses and to urge you to reconsider going back to virtual learning. First, when several of our teachers had to be quarantined, our teaching assistants, curriculum coordinator, assistant principal, and principal had to substitute in classrooms. Our curriculum coordinator, assistant principal, and principal have been working lunch duty, cleaning plexiglass between lunches. And while we truly appreciate their hard work, our administration and the teaching assistants are stretched to the point that I fear they will break. Second, having to teach virtual and face-to-face learners at the same time is not effective for students or teachers. Having separate, dedicated teachers for virtual learners and face-to-face learners would help students to be more successful. Teaching both platforms at the same time is mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausting. We are also stretched to the point that I fear we too will break. Please, let us return to virtual learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sylvia Anderson.
Hello.
You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Sylvia Anderson, and I teach special education in the highest amount of cases of zip code 75211. I'm here to speak on behalf of my students as I teach them in person with a high risk, very high risk level. I was also diagnosed with COVID. When I was first diagnosed with COVID, I was 2 weeks into teaching when the students were back. I'm sorry, when the students were still virtual. It was one of our first cases at our campus, and the lack of knowledge of what to do, who to contact, our administration didn't know how to contact, they didn't know any protocols, was very concerning. After being hospitalized for a week, I was able to come home. I was eventually able to go back to work, which I returned last Tuesday when we had an SAT test, where these seniors all were forced to come to the school if they wanted to take the test, no matter what risk they had. And our students that were in person were forced to stay in the classroom with their teacher all day, trying to teach virtually in their other classes. Due to more seniors coming in what they known, we were forced to also try to combine classes. On top of that, there's concerns of cleaning and lack of hours given to our custodial staff with cleaning. We were asked to come on our intervention day when that could be a day where they can deep clean our school. Our students, we talk all the time and we had them write essays on how they are feeling, and they all say scared. Our students, once again, are in the highest zip code of COVID cases. I know multiple students have lost family members that they lived with. We lost a student, one of my students last year. We have lost a teacher. We have lost a teacher's husband. Our teachers are overstressed. Our department heads, we see them, they are the ones that keep us up. They look overworked and overwhelmed. Our administration staff is doing as much as they can, but once again, they are overworked and overwhelmed right now. And the fear, because they do know truly us being evaluated at these standards that were happening last year is unrealistic, but they are also held to standards that are unrealistic. I have not seen yet my board member come to our school and see how our protocols and safety protocols are working. Yet I have spoken to multiple IT and district people downtown who are still continuing to be allowed to work from home. For my students and their mental health, I do request that we return to virtual until things are safe.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Emily Pender.
Hi there. Shout out to Elisa from Skyline, the student. You're going to be a great leader one day, girl. Good evening. Tonight, I come to you as a concerned educator for the district. As I'm sure you're aware, the way we've been teaching for the past few months is not ideal nor substantial for our students to retain not only knowledge of content, but important life skills. It is not like we could have predicted that such a traumatic pandemic would still be continuing, but don't let that cast a shadow on what I bring to the table. We have been in school now for about 7 weeks, the first 2 to 3 being completely virtual. And at the start, we had students coming up to the school taking MAP tests while still trying to find who needed technology and hotspots. I didn't see some of my students pop into a Zoom call until 4 weeks in. This is with phone calls home. After the first few weeks virtual and trying to soothe chaos, we bring kids back into school. Now your teachers are hybrid teaching, except we don't even get to give the kids much content because now after MAP testing for 2 weeks, we have SLOs we have to give our students. Then we are told we are still supposed to continue giving weekly quizzes. Next, we are informed that even though this first 9-week period is at the start, our students are still expected to take a 6 weeks common assessment at the 6 weeks mark and perform well. Constantly hearing and knowing that data is going to be low, and apparently that's okay, is what really highlights my concern. Why we are still having to test our students so much formally and informally when we can barely deliver the content that they need. Why, as students, and during a time like this, are they still expected to sit down in front of a screen and take an exam online with no formal computer training, plus with no paper to write on, when for their entire scholar lives have been testing with paper? Do you know how difficult it is to teach teenagers testing strategies on the computer while also trying to teach them just basic computer skills? My true concern is in the spring when we are expected to have our children take the STAR test. After a year of not getting the instruction they are used to, and while basically missing 3 months of school during the 2019-2020 school year. Is it because it's going to be fine when half of my students don't pass the STAR exam? Is it going to be fine when it affects all of my teachers' TEI scores? I've heard a rumor that the entire district has over 1 million absences. There are students on my roster that I have still yet to see or have yet to see any work produced, even after phone calls home. I really want to know why we are still expected to test our students so frequently instead of finding different, less formal ways to make sure they are learning in a time like this. Is it because of funding? Is it because of ratings? Why are we expecting so much from our students and our staff? My teachers are just trying to create a safe environment for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Luis Moreno.
Good evening, distinguished members of the Dallas ISD Board of Trustees, Dr. Michael Hinojosa. My name is Luis Moreno. I'm a bilingual teacher, member of the Alliance AFT Union. For me, I would like to thank you for all the resources and tools we have received. I would like to share the experience of a smile of one of my students when he received his tablet. Being a very poor child is priceless to see this. But from time to time, differences arise. And it's always good to remember that COVID is real. It's so real that has taken more than 1,000 lives in Dallas County, including James Baker, one of our colleague teachers. So according to Dallas County, as for today, the risk is 4 is the maximum. So I would like to speak about the ADA accommodations for teachers with pre-existing conditions. It was brought to my attention that several educators in Dallas ISD with pre-existing conditions like asthma, cancer, diabetes, they were denied the accommodation, including working remotely or having N95 masks. So please consider that for my colleagues. And I would like to talk about the TEI evaluations. So this is not fair. The factors, there are many factors out of control of teachers. Please consider a different rubric or different evaluation. This is not the same standard. This is different times. So I would like to request that to resume to work remotely, especially for teachers with serious health condition. And I ask you to accommodate or postpone or adapt the rubrics of TEI. And I ask a plan to support our staff members in case of losses or impact. And I would like to ask for accountability for the district. If we have so great resources, why not use wisely? Let's resume remotely education until it's safe. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Hobie Huckle.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Good evening, trustees and Superintendent Hinojosa. My name is Hobie Huckle, 8527 Brettshire Drive, Dallas, Texas, 75228. I teach at Lawrence Middle School, and I'm a member of Alliance AFT. Dallas County's 7-day average for COVID yesterday was 532 and rising. Back on June 30th, it was 513 and rising. For most of July, there were over 1,000 new cases each day. Fortunately, schools were closed then and did not make a bad situation worse. Sheer luck, I suppose, because when you are now confronted with a very similar trend, you immediately double down and declare that in-person classes will continue. It makes me wonder who is advising you, a radiologist? Because you exhibit every evidence of Trump's herd mentality. I recall in August that Dr. Hinojosa promised to follow Dallas County public health guidelines. The COVID-19 risk level had dropped to orange, extreme caution. Not exactly reassuring, but there was an economy to restart. Within a few weeks, all DISD faculty and staff were required to report to their buildings. And a few weeks after that, in-person classes resumed. In spite of assurances, campus staff were routinely denied alternative work assignments. Even for the most vulnerable of us, another vapid promise. We were also told that DISD would sue the state of Texas if threatened with funding cuts because of a return to virtual classes only. Yet now we're told that DISD has no choice but to comply with Texas' Trumpian mandates. Perhaps that single act of bad faith could be overlooked, but what we see instead is a pattern of negligence that can only benefit oligarchs. Show us you have some remnant of integrity. Make all classes virtual until the positivity rate stays below 5%, and suspend that stupid TEI. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Heidi Zico.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. And thank you to the board and Superintendent Hinojosa for your time. My name is Heidi Zico, and I teach in Dallas ISD at elementary. I've taught for over 20 years. I have a master's in special ed and an undergraduate in elementary ed. I have loved every day of teaching and continue to love it, except this year has been extremely difficult. The teachers work hard every day, and the administration has too. And I think what we need to take our time to look at isn't the amount of time and effort we take each day, which I think all of us can agree has increased. I think we need to look at specifically the COVID red zone and how all the schools should be shut down and go straight to virtual. I know we love data, so the data tells us the exact same thing we need to do. New York City schools is one of the other big urban districts. They have chosen to take the zip codes that went over 5% positivity rate for their COVID and close that district, close that zip code. They've done it immediately, and they're already going to see results. Our school in our county district is already over 11% positivity rate, and we're doing nothing. No changes are being made. This is concerning for myself, but most importantly for the kids I serve every day. Right now, our 7-day average is 406 cases, and yesterday we're at 532, just like the gentleman said before. These These numbers are just too great for our kids to be at school and for those families to be at risk. We have the technology and resources to go home and teach virtually. How many days are we going to just continue to just hope no student, no teacher or staff or family member gets severely sick or dies? The Dallas ISD is now one of the, in Dallas DISD, it's one of the reasons why the COVID numbers are going up. We're continuing to open. Our COVID tracker is now over 400. Those trackers don't just track the students and staff and teachers. Those are already connecting to every family member in each home, every neighbor they come across, any friend that they see. There's a ripple effect for those students at school, and we're seeing it every day. And we also know that the most affected populations are the ones that are African American and Hispanic, the populations we serve every day. This is an overwhelming majority of the students we serve. Let's do the right thing. Let's go back to virtual. Let's do it for the sake of the students, the staff, the teachers, and the community we serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Hope Lee.
I did it.
Hope Lee.
Good evening to the superintendent, board members, and the central staff present. My name is Hope B. Lee. I'm a 20-year employee of the district and a member of NEA Dallas. During this last June's board meeting, one lasted close to midnight, this year's budget was approved. That was the night some groups and individuals asked for a larger increase that had been reviewed throughout the year. After a great deal of discussion and stated frustration, Dr. Hinojosa and some board members agreed and supported a one-time stipend for support staff of $750. During that meeting, we were told that the budget process usually begins in January of that year or even December. So my request this evening is that as we live through and move through COVID, consider migration, which would include extending the school day and possibly school year, that we would be cognizant and ask you to keep your promise of looking at ways to continue to give paraprofessionals in certain categories an increase. Thank you for your time and for your consideration. We thank you for your tireless hours that you serve and the decisions that you have to make in the name of what's best for students and what's good for staff. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Drew Hull.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I wore a pink shirt today in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Shout out to my mom, survivor. Maybe I should try wearing a red jumpsuit to better convey the idea of COVID awareness to y'all. Red, of course, representing the highest threat level for spread of COVID-19, yet it seems like people who make our decisions have chosen to play deaf to the facts. Medical experts keep it simple, though. Stay home. Oh, oops, I can't, even though I could do my job about as effectively from home. Every member of my family has chosen to take a cautious approach and stay home whenever possible, but I have had that option taken from me. My family all works and learns safely from home, but then there's me, forced to put them all at risk on a daily. Do you know the anger, guilt, and anxiety that causes for me? I'm forced to spend 5 days a week inside of a COVID time bomb, also known as an elementary school. What's the actual goal here? To make it to mid-June? Would we really make it to the last day of school like this? Because if not, what's the holdup on pulling a plug on this attempt at a return? It's week 3. And the plan is wear a mask, sanitize, and cross your fingers. That's cute, but it doesn't take a medical expert to know that we won't get anywhere near that without more teachers or even students passing away first. Is that really what it takes? Why would we continue to react after the fact to a catastrophe that could have been easily prevented on the front end? People are conveniently at home right now in their PJs are telling us that we have to report to work in the PJs and other poor neighborhoods. Like, what is this? And why are we all pretending like they have the power when we are the ones who actually have the skills to teach and grow these kids in our society? What would happen if teachers just start taking their days and having staycations at home with their families? Because I'm thinking about it. I know some OG teachers with triple-digit vacation days piled up because of all their years of dedication. What would the education system do then? There are essentially no substitutes available, so if we stay home, ain't nobody teaching your kid that day. Other teachers can't take them because they have their own high numbers and spacing issues in the classrooms that were the same size as they were every other year. So with just 5 or 6 teachers missing at one school on a given day, it would lead to chaos. What's to keep us from saying, cough, cough, sorry, my throat feels sore this morning. Might have some symptoms. I'll take a test in a few days and let you know how it goes. We could do that. But in the meantime, to be honest, it would be the kids who suffer if we take days off as opposed to teaching from home. And that's not fair. And we don't want that. But that'd be on you, not us. I would rather take my chances going independent as a teacher. I'm every child's favorite, every student's favorite. Round up some legit teachers who want to do what's best for kids, set up our own curriculum, set up our own financials. Only reason we haven't gone that route yet is because of how much we care for our students. We don't want to hear about the current education system in place and what it says. It's 2020 now. And like many other things in this country.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Our next speaker is Jamie Mitchell.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, how you doing? Good evening, everyone. I'm a PE teacher at Hexbury Elementary in Dallas, and I've heard at least 3 other of my faculty talking tonight. I don't have a script, so I'm just going to go straight off the cuff. But I believe you have to do the right thing and go virtual. I mean, if you were honestly walking around your school and you were looking in the eyes of all the teachers and the students who are nervous, stressed, emotionally just wiped out, I think you might have a change of heart. I mean, I really do. I mean, I work at a fantastic school with an unbelievable faculty, administration, custodians, cafeteria staff, and everyone's doing everything they can to keep children safe, masks, social distancing. But when all you're doing is focusing on the safety issue of the students and the staff, which is the most important thing here, then actually what teaching are you doing? So, I mean, like other people have said, I mean, what are you waiting for? What are we waiting for? I mean, eventually the inevitable is going to happen, unfortunately. So that's why we need to go virtual ASAP. And I'm working at one of the better schools, I believe, who are all focusing on PPE, social distancing, masks. So I can't even imagine what it might be like at a school where the administrators aren't enforcing that, unlike at our school where would you send your child to school just now? Because I wouldn't. So please do the right thing and send us all to virtual for the safety of the students and the staff. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Chris Dia Houston.
Good afternoon. Good evening. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. And good evening, Board and Superintendent Hinojosa. This is Christia Houston, Dallas ISD alumni, employee, and executive board member of Alliance AFT. I saw the online message today regarding the reasons that we are not returning to all virtual, even though our county has returned to red status. It is totally understandable that we want our students and employees on campus, but we want them safe as well. I am speaking on behalf of myself and other concerned educators who want to ensure that campuses are consistent in doing everything possible to keep our students and employees safe for them to learn, teach, and work in a safe environment. I would like again to encourage us to advocate for full virtual learning during this red zone period. I'd also like to urge the district to consider a different set of parameters or something as it relates to approving and disapproving ADA accommodation requests. If, as educators, we have to honor accommodations for students, why is it that the district is not honoring requests for ADA accommodations for its employees who have applied for and requested variations of those as well? Employees should not have to go on an unpaid leave or resign from their career and their job for any condition, especially when it's covered by the ADA. That is why it's there. These are your employees and students, Dallas ISD. We're smiling behind the mask and trying to put on a brave face. Also, with this being a very crucial and contentious election season, if you have not voted yet, please support candidates who support public education, who support teachers, who support unions, who support science, who support diversity, and who advocate for truth and transparency in the case of this pandemic, as well as any other national emergency. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Shawana Washington.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Good evening. Hello, President Henry, Superintendent Hinojosa, and school board trustees. To the surprise of almost none of my coworkers, Dallas is back again at the red COVID risk level. The red risk level advises everyone in Dallas to stay home and stay safe. Now, when I read that, it sounds pretty clear to me that we shouldn't be cramming children in classrooms. But I'll admit I'm not a medical professional or expert. Well, thankfully, Dallas County does have some pretty good experts, and they helped design a document on public health guidance during the pandemic. To get specific, Dallas County says the document was prepared by the Public Health Committee, which is made up of public health epidemiology and infectious disease leaders who have prepared their entire lives to advise us in this moment. Let me read you a few of the recommendations in the document. Visiting museums or libraries, not recommended. Youth sports, not recommended. Youth summer camps, not recommended. In regards to religious services and funerals, we are advised to avoid in-person attendance and utilize virtual methods such as live streaming or other social media-based platforms for continuous faith practices. So let me be clear, the ISD wants us to pack our classrooms and buses, which will inevitably spread the virus. Then when somebody dies, we should live stream the funeral? This is shameful. The science is clear. The medical professionals have spoken, and the only way to keep safe and stop the spread of the virus is to stay home and teach virtually. How can we look our students in the eyes and tell them some of the most educated people in our society have written out clear guidance and be knowingly and go knowingly against their instructions? You can't. Disregarding science and the experts sends a clear message to our students. This district doesn't value education or science. Why would a student want to become a scientist or a doctor when the very district they were educated in doesn't listen to them? By continuing to pack our classrooms and buses, DISD has become an ally of COVID. The district is acting irresponsibly, which hurts the students, staff, and community. We have already seen one death, and unless the district returns to virtual-only instructions, I fear we will see more. Please do the right thing and listen to the experts. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mary Parker.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
You have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay. Blood on our hands, blood on our hands. Are you okay with blood on your hands? I'm not. I cannot in good conscience cheer for students to return to campus. I do not understand those who can, but we are being compelled to cheer, literally in many cases. I've taught for 25 years, 6 in Dallas. I love my campus and principal. I love my colleagues. I appreciate the work of the superintendent and the board. Most of all, I love my students. I'm proud to share that my virtual students are rocking virtual learning. Student-led Zoom breakout rooms are something to behold. And aside, the sheer number of meetings, tests, trainings, and test data processing put forth as non-negotiable is suffocating us. It leaves us no time to improve the interest level and rigor of lessons unless we don't sleep. I'm averaging about 3 hours of sleep a night. A number of weeks ago, I was especially proud when Dr. Hinojosa stated bravely, unequivocally, that he would listen to and abide by the science, the numbers, the epidemiologist, the CDC. It's a given that in-person learning is ideal. We all want that. However, I hear my colleagues in droves. Our concerns are fact-based, science-based, data-based, and don't we love all things data-based? Blood on our hands. Unfortunately, it seems as though the leaders who early on promised to listen to and follow the science and the warnings in order to protect the lives of students and teachers have abandoned that promise. Perhaps they believe a full recovery is the norm. Perhaps they want to pretend that COVID doesn't leave thousands with permanently scarred lungs, neurological deficits, and long-term cardiac issues, and so much more. Blood on your hands. We all see that Dallas County numbers, infections, and deaths are escalating rapidly. The numbers are going in the wrong direction. Same is true nationwide. We revere data, don't we? Yet I and all of my colleagues are hearing leaders enthusiastically encourage the return of more and more students. This, instead of opting for the obvious and least lethal course of action, a return to virtual learning until the numbers again begin trending down to far safer levels. Will it be popular? Maybe not. Will it risk funding? Possibly. But Superintendent Hinojosa, board members, implementing virtual learning until the end of the year, at the very least, will leave no one with blood on his hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Nedra Ballard.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I hear you. I am Nedra Ballard, a lifetime Dallas citizen, a product of Dallas ISD, newly retired from Dallas ISD as an educator, college graduate, parent. I have children in DISD and a member of AFT. Safety first. And this is a case of virtual learning in a pandemic. The coronavirus infectious disease known as COVID is a kind of carbon monoxide. COVID shares characteristics of carbon monoxide. I went out on the Mayo Clinic website and I looked up carbon monoxide and I saw a lot of resemblances. Carbon monoxide is invisible, clear, cannot be seen with the naked eye. COVID is invisible, clear, cannot be seen with the naked eye. Carbon monoxide is odorless, has no smell. COVID is odorless, has no smell. Carbon monoxide is intangible, imperceptible, unnoticeable. COVID is intangible, imperceptible, unnoticeable. Carbon monoxide is tasteless. COVID is tasteless, but has been reported to leave a person tasteless. Carbon monoxide is a gas. It is airborne, has the ability to fly. Its travel is boundless. COVID is a gas, airborne, has the ability to fly. Its travel is boundless. Carbon monoxide is an agent that contains one atom of oxygen in a molecule, making it difficult for a person to breathe. COVID is an agent that attacks the oxygen supply, making it difficult for a person to breathe. Save the respirator, some breathing machine. So there is evidence such as carrying events, expert witnesses, eyewitnesses, respectively, including you who decided to hold a virtual meeting today that both carbon monoxide and COVID exist and can be deadly, making both a hazardous material. Therefore, until this biological, ecological, and economical threat of a disastrous pandemic subsides, in God's time, Dallas ISD should return to virtual learning only. Virtual learning only is not a time to do nothing. Virtual learning only is a time for families to not to than what they're doing. We can use our gifted, intelligent students to bring in social emotional learning.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Our next speaker is Andrew Kirk.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Andrew Kirk, and tonight I'm speaking to you in my capacity as co-chair of Alliance AFT's TEI committee. In our last meeting, we heard from dozens of teachers on the implementation of the new teacher performance rubric, testing administration, and new attendance protocols. Each of these changes will affect the viability of the evaluation instrument in various ways, all of which point to the need to extend last year's hold harmless policy. A number of teachers are still unclear regarding which behaviors are needed to demonstrate proficient or exemplary instruction in a virtual environment. Likewise, the expectations for learning platforms such as Google Classroom seem to vary significantly from campus to campus. While TEI's narrow and quantitative feedback was a problem prior to the pandemic, it is even more so now that so many elements of unpredictability have been introduced. As cases rise in our district, large numbers of students and staff are required to quarantine, leading to a number of disruptions in instructional pacing, quality, and consistency. If a hold harmless policy were readopted, this year could serve as an opportunity to shift our district's teacher evaluation paradigm toward one that incorporates greater coaching and support. Our systems of recording attendance are also concerning. Very little is required of students to be counted present, or rather remote asynchronous engaged. Students who, due to a number of factors, may not be able to regularly participate in live Zoom sessions or other synchronous learning activities may end up included in a given teacher's TEI roster, effectively penalizing them. While I understand the need for flexibility with regard to attendance, teachers who chose to serve students with greater needs should not be punished for that decision. Lastly, with regard to virtual ACPs and testing, my own experience with AP testing this spring points to the problems with virtual assessment, which are myriad. Long-standing gaps in access to reliable Wi-Fi and working devices will compound existing equity issues in testing, already largely a reflection of family income and educational attainment. The likelihood that students will spend most of this school year online in this sense provides an opening to address the various ways in which our testing regime disadvantages our students and handicaps our teachers. TEI's many equity issues have been brought to the attention of this board repeatedly. In the words of its performance rubric, the pandemic seems positioned to exacerbate all or nearly all of them. Please use this opportunity to revisit our model of teacher evaluation with an eye toward developing one that truly centers authentic learning, meaningful feedback, and professional growth. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes our speakers.
Thank you. We're now moving on to section 5.01, which is consider and take possible action to approve the minutes submitted for approval. The following minutes have been submitted for approval. We have the Superintendent's Evaluation Ad Hoc Committee, September 16, 2020, Audit Committee meeting, September 17, 2020, Board meeting, September 24th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion made by Trustee Flores, second by Trustee Marshall. It has been moved and seconded we adopt the minutes for approval. Trustees, are there any corrections? No corrections. Will you please cast your votes?
Trustee Foreman. Okay. Trustee Garza.
Garcia votes yes.
Yes. The motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, trustees. You just adopted the motion approving the minutes as submitted for approval. We're now moving on to consent agenda items. Consider and take possible action to approve consent agenda items 6.01 through 6.28 as amended. Trustees, we have following items that were pulled for separate vote. That's 6.04, 6.06, 6.09. They've all been moved back to the consent agenda items. Consent agenda. So if I have a motion, we can continue.
So moved. Second.
Who? Trustee Flores with the motion, Trustee Johnson the second. To adopt the consent agenda as amended, trustees, will you please cast your votes?
Trustee Garcia.
Garcia votes yes.
The motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, trustees. It's 8:39 p.m. and this meeting is now adjourned.